I hear you sometimes talk about your job or your profession in one way, but it seems like you talk about your role here at the fire as being a little bit more of who it is that you are. Does that seem about right?
My job, my career, my profession is a wildland firefighter. Mm-hmm. I've been at it for 23 years. There's an end date to that, and I'm going to retire.
Looking forward to that
I'm
one.
building
maybe
up
too,
towards that.
Yeah.
But here, at the Echota ground, at my town, here, the high chief here at this ground, and my term limit is death. So, however long I live, that's how long I will hold my job here, and then hopefully it will pass on to the next, maybe a grandchild or something. You know, a lot of elected officials, they have a 4-year, maybe they can run a couple of terms or something, but there's an end date. You know, they're defined, finite date. They can say, okay, I've got at the very longest this amount of time. For guys like me with these ceremonial grounds, we could live to be 80 or 90 years old, or 100 years old. And I've already been working for my ground for over 20 years, and I have been chief here since 2002. And so that's 13 years or 11 years or so since that happened. And I've got a long ways to go. I'm still a young man. So it's a huge responsibility to accept a job like that, to accept that seat at a ground. And there are now today, I know several young chiefs at other grounds that are in their 20s. Mm-hmm. I know one chief today is a good friend of mine. He has been a chief of his ground since he was 9.
No kidding. That's a special kind of office.
That's a special person.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. You were talking earlier about some of the connections that folks have with other grounds. Those grounds come from other tribes too. And as I understand it, the Echota grounds is part of the Four Mothers Society. Could you tell us a little bit about the Four Mothers Society of the Stomp Grounds?
From what I've been taught, and you will find very little documentation, you know, any kind of literature or much mentioned in history books of what we call the Four Mothers Confederacy, or the Four Mothers Nation of Indians, or the Four Mothers Society. You hear these different words spoken. At one time, there was an effort to unify some of the tribes in the Southeast. If you remember a well-known Indian, he was a Shawnee, his name was Tecumseh. He made an effort on his own to join tribes together to resist the encroachment of the outside world that was coming in on our Indian lands and whatnot back east. And from what I have been told through oral history, that he traveled into our country, the Cherokee country, Creek, Choctaw, and Chickasaw, and he encouraged and urged us to join together. Mm-hmm. And some of us did, some of our fires did. Some of the individual chiefs did ally with each other and form that confederation of tribes. That's when our culture was already threatened at that point. Not long after that was the great removals of all the southeastern people into Indian Territory. And so the survivors of the removal, some of those fires were restarted here in Indian Territory, and some of us still acknowledge that old confederation to where we said we wouldn't fight against each other anymore. Mm-hmm. And we would be on the same side. And we would preserve our culture in a like fashion so that we would have a standard way and we would all be able to help one another and understand each other. So we care about our ground based on that old agreement that we not only follow are regulations that was set by our forefathers, but that we also wish no harm nor would wage war against any other tribal town that was part of that confederation. And that gives us a duty to help one another in a sense of unifying each other together, even though we may not have exactly the same history or the blood lineage. Our people did want to get along.
Mm-hmm. And you're still
and not
meeting.
fight against each other anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'd always read that the Foremothers Confederacy kind of started up around the time of allotment. But it sounds like, according to the history that you're talking about here, it extends way farther back, back into the early 1800s, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very interesting. And it's still going on now. You're still having meetings with these other tribal folks and these grounds from other traditions and other places. Is that right?
There are several of the fires in the Muskogee Creek Nation that would be remnants of the old Foremothers Confederacy. This ground here is the last of the Cherokee fires that is still acknowledged as part of that mm-hmm. through our history. And so, as far as I know, the Chickasaw and the Choctaw fires have all went out. And so today we have this Cherokee fire here, and then a handful of the Creek tribal town fires that would be, those are what's left of the old Confederation. And official meetings for Foremothers people aren't really something that take place. But meetings of dances where people come to dance, I think that it's still, at least among some of the older people, it's still acknowledged that we're Foremothers people and still helping each other, mm-hmm. peaceful with each other. We try to acknowledge those little things when we can at meetings that take place when we're together, but maybe not specific a Foremothers meeting, you see.
Right. All right, very good.